What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I have a really special build for you guys. I finally have it completed, my in-game Lightning Storm build. Now, I spent all of last night grinding like crazy to finally get a pair of Tebow's Will so that way I could do all of the content I needed to do to showcase the build and bring this build to you guys right as the weekend is starting. Now, I will say the pair of Tebow's Will I got were pretty trash. However, that Duriel kill you seen at the end of the video, those pants, not trash. Those were a really great roll on Tebow's Will. And I'll also say that I will be including not just this build guide, but a separate build guide that will have a link in the description of this video that will contain the Ubers that I would like to have for this build if I eventually get them. So you guys will have access to the build with just uniques, as well as the build if I had a Ring of Starless Skies, as well as all the really cool unique tuning stones that you can get for your Seneschal. But I just want you guys to ask yourselves one question. Are you tired of not seeing the cosmetics on your Druid? Well, guess what? You came to the right build video, guys, because I made you guys an insanely good human Lightning Storm Druid. So let's go ahead and talk about it because I am excited to get this to you guys, man. I really worked hard all night long, and man, I just could not stop until I finished this build out because I really wanted to bring it to you guys today. So starting off with the skills, we're using Lightning Storm, obviously. We have Wind Shear, then we are working with some Earthen Bulwark, as well as triple companions, Wolves, Poison Creeper, and Ravens. And guess what? We actually get to use those skills because we're in human form. Next, for our Spirit Boons, we are running Weariness on the Deer. We're Spirit Bonded into the Eagle. We're using Scythe Talons as well as Avian Wrath. Got to get that crit chance and critical hit damage. Then on the Wolf, we are using Pack Leader to reset our companion skills, mainly our Poison Creeper and Ravens. And then on the Snake, we're running Overload. Now, you can change this if you'd like to. I just prefer Overload. If you would like, you could run something like Calm Before the Storm if you want to swap a skill out for an ultimate skill, but that will actually be in the Uber Unique build. Now onto the equipment, we are going to be running the Juggernaut aspect on the helmet, and in my opinion, this is probably the best defensive aspect in the game for this season. It gives you a massive amount of armor, and it only comes at the cost of doubling the evade cooldown. And with the Lightning Storm build, you should always have the boots with stacks of evade, so you really don't feel it that much. And honestly, the amount of armor you get for this makes reaching armor cap so easy. So definitely run this. You're going to love it, I'm telling you. Then for the chest armor, we're running the aspect of Mending Stone just to increase the duration of our bulwark. Then on the gloves, we're using the Unsung Ascetic Wraps, the brand new unique for this season. And man, you guys are going to love it when you get your hands on a pair. They make Lightning Storm so good. And then on the pants, we're running Tebow's Will, so we get that multiplicative damage bonus while we're unstoppable. And that's a big reason why I wanted to do a human Druid as well, so we had access to Bulwark as well as Nature's Fury, and we could just constantly refresh that buff. Then on the boots, we're using Symbiotic Aspect to cool down our non-ultimate skills. And on the weapon, we're using a Shepherd's Aspect. And obviously, that's going to be on pretty much all core skill builds for the Druid because you're getting a bunch of multiplicative damage off of your companions. Now, for my builds, I like to run a two-handed staff. However, I did go ahead and incorporate an offhand setup if you like to run a totem. But it's my preference. I just like a two-handed staff with Shepherd's Aspect. Then on the amulet, we are running the conceited aspect. So obviously we're getting the barrier from our bulwark. So I really like the fact that we get multiplicative damage across the board with the conceited aspect as opposed to the retaliation aspect where we only get multiplicative damage towards our core skills. Then on our first ring, we are running the Runeworker's Conduit aspect. Now this is a bossing setup, so if you're going after bosses, use Runeworkers. If you're running through dungeons or vaults, use Lightning Dancers. So Runeworker's Conduit, insanely good aspect, hits like a truck, okay? Then on the second ring, aspect of Stampede. And again, this is just to give us more companions to buff up our Shepherd's aspect to generate more multiplicative damage for our core skills. Then, like I said, I incorporated the offhand here, and if you do run one, Aspect of Retaliation is a fantastic aspect for you to run on this build. Again, more multiplicative damage for your core skills never hurts. Now for the affixes on the gear. So on the helmet, we're doing Willpower, Cooldown, Lucky Hit Chance while we have a barrier, as well as Total Armor. And you could probably flex that cooldown if you'd like to. I just prefer it. If you'd like, you could probably run all stats. On the chest, we're running Ranks to Earthen Bulwark just to buff up our barrier a little bit more. We're doing damage reduction from poison enemies, damage reduction while fortified, and damage reduction from enemies that are close to us. Now, you can run any combination of damage reduction affixes if you want to, and you can even flex that Ranks to Earthen Bulwark if you want to, but that's what I like to run on my chest piece. Then for the gloves, like I said, I went ahead and threw in some affixes here: crit strike chance, lucky hit chance, ranks to lightning storm, and attack speed if you do not have the ascetic wraps. Then on the pants, if you don't have Tebow's Will, you can use dodge chance, damage reduction while fortified, total armor, and damage reduction from poison enemies. And I got my very first Duriel kills without Tebow's Will, so just be aware this build can light up Duriel pretty easily without needing any kind of multiplicative damage from Tebow's Will. Then on the boots, I like spirit cost reduction, movement speed, dodge chance, and willpower. Now for the weapon, I like all stats, damage to close enemies, damage to distant enemies, and willpower. Now you could flex one of these stat slots. You could probably go with critical strike damage if you'd like to, or even core skill damage. So you're not set in stone here. You can kind of flex a couple things here or there, but definitely want to get damage to close and damage to distant enemies just to buff up your Thunderstruck node on your Paragon board. Then for our amulet, I'm running movement speed, spirit cost reduction, dodge chance, and ranks of the Envenom passive. Now, you can flex out the ranks of the Envenom passive. You can also get ranks to Defiance to get that multiplicative damage bonus towards elite enemies with your nature magic skills. Or you can also get ranks to Wild Impulses to further generate some more multiplicative damage towards your core skills at a small cost to your spirit cost. Then for our rings, we are going to be running the same affixes on both of those. It's going to be critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, damage to close enemies, and damage to distant enemies. Again, buffing up our Thunderstruck node on our Paragon board. And then, like I said, if you run a totem, spirit cost reduction, critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, and willpower, and you can flex any one of those. It's really your choice because I personally like to run two-hand staffs. Now for our gems, we're running emeralds on the weapon. I like to run diamonds on the armor. You can run rubies or you can run sapphires. I like diamonds just to buff up my barrier a little bit more. And then on the jewelry, it's going to be a combination of diamonds as well as skulls, but right now I currently have 2 diamonds and 1 skull. Now for our Seneschal construct, and this is a big reason why we can now do a human druid, and I think you guys are really going to love this setup. So first, we're running Tempest, and we're running Tempest because it attacks super fast. And why is that important? Well, we're going to be running the efficiency support, which gives us that big buff to our critical strike chance for 3 seconds, and we're always going to be refreshing that because of how fast Tempest attacks. Then the big one here is the resource support. So now we're getting a ton of primary resource every time our Seneschal hits an enemy, and this thing generates a lot of spirit. So that is the big reason why we can do a human druid this season. It really makes up a lot of ground in terms of what we would lose by not going direwolf. And then the swift support, increase that attack speed to attack even faster to generate more resources and keep up that crit buff. Then for our second utility ability, we're using the Flash of Adrenaline to get that multiplicative damage bonus. And then we're using the duration support as well as the tactical support, because when we get those maxed out, we're going to have that buff up 100% of the time. And then for our third tuning stone, we're using the Safeguard support just to give us a little bit more survivability with that 15% damage reduction. And I think they actually buffed that. I'm not sure, but they did do a patch last night. So do be aware of that. All of these could be potentially better than what is currently in Mobalytics. Now, like I said, guys, there's an Uber variant to this just in case you guys get lucky enough to get the Ring of Starless Skies. So the things we have changed are we swapped out the basic skill for the Ultimate Petrify. We went ahead and removed Overload and went into Calm Before the Storm on our boons. And obviously, we are running the Ring of Starless Skies, and that is going to be accompanied by the Runeworker's Conduit if we're bossing, and the Lightning Dancer's aspect if we are going through dungeons or vaults. Now, if you prefer, you could obviously swap this out just to a Stampede aspect, but those are the ones I like to run. And then down here on our Seneschal construct, we are running the unique Evernight tuning stone, so that way we get more ranks to our skills. And then over here on our Flash of Adrenaline ability, we are going to be running the Genesis Tuning Stone. So that way we buff up that Flash of Adrenaline an extra 50%, and that would go ahead and give us a total of 30% multiplicative damage. So that's what I would like to run if I get those Tuning Stones, as well as the Ring of Starless Skies. Now for the skill tree, guys, and we're going to go over this pretty quick because nothing really has changed too much here. So we have Wind Shear into Wild Wind Shear for the resource regeneration. Then we move down 1 point Heart of the Wild into 3 points Wild Impulses. Then max out our Lightning Storm into Primal Lightning Storm. Now you can swap out Primal Lightning Storm for Raging Lightning Storm if you'd like to for that one additional Lightning Bolt. Then we're going 3 points Predatory Instinct. Down into our defensive skills, we got 5 points into Earthen Bulwark, into Preserving Earthen Bulwark to build up our Fortify. Then we are grabbing 1 point Ancestral Fortitude because we're going to get the rest of our resistances from our gear as well as our Paragon board. And we are going 3 points into Vigilance just to keep that damage reduction buff up when we use a defensive skill. Now for our companions, we're grabbing 1 point in each one. Then we're going into Ferocious Wolves just to give us more Fortify. And then Brutal Poison Creeper because the active skill is insanely good for this build. That 20% critical strike chance goes a long way. Then from there, we're going into our Brutal Ravens just to give us those 2 additional Ravens. Again, buffing up our Shepherd's aspect. Down into our Wrath tree, we're just going into the Lightning Storm passives, 1 point Elemental Exposure, 1 point Charge Atmosphere, 3 points Electric Shock, and 3 points Bad Omen. Then we are picking up 1 point Neurotoxin and 3 points in Venom. Moving down to our ultimate tree, we are going the passive tree up here, 3 points Defiance, 2 points into Circle of Life just to give us a little added healing, and then 3 points into Resonance just to give us a little bit more multiplicative damage. Then for our key passive, we're going to be running my favorite one, Nature's Fury. Now for the part you guys have all been waiting for, the Paragon board. So for the very first Paragon board, we're going to be running Human, and we're going to be picking up enough points to activate the additional bonus, as well as a few more points that we had left over. Then for our second board, we're running Ancestral Guidance, and we are running Earth and Sky on the Glyph slot. Now this is 40 willpower, trust me guys, it's just a bug with Mobalytics. And we are also going to be picking up as many core skill damage nodes as possible in this board. Then for our third board, we're running the Thunderstruck board with the Electrocution Glyph. I love the Electrocution Glyph. I have a couple extra points I put into here that I had left over. It really buffs up our Lightning Dancer as well as our Runeworker's Conduit aspect by quite a lot, and then you get a nice chunk of multiplicative damage when enemies get hit by those aspects. And then we're trailing down here to pick up the legendary node Thunderstruck. Obviously this is a no-brainer. It gives us a massive amount of multiplicative damage towards our storm skills, and the crazy part about this one is it goes uncapped, so get as much damage to close and damage to distant enemies as you possibly can. Then for the fourth board, we're doing Constricting Tendrils and Undaunted. So like I said, Undaunted on the Glyph, we're picking up the rare nodes here and here, and then we're just going to be exiting the board left so we can pick up some more resistance nodes here and here. And then into our fifth board, that's going to be the Earth and Devastation board, and that's only because it has a really nice location for the Glyph slot. So we're just trailing up here, picking up some more resistances here, slotting in our Spirit Glyph, and then just traveling down into our very last board, the Hythen Malice board. Now this is where we put the majority of our free points that were left over, so we're going to be slotting in Territorial, and then we are going to trail down here to pick up the legendary nodes, so that way we get some more multiplicative damage when we poison up a bunch of enemies in the dungeon. It may not be the best for bossing, but in terms of dungeons and vaults, there are so many monsters, this really goes a long way. And like I said, we're running Territorial on the Glyph and picking up as many Dexterity nodes as we can in this area. And that is because we're just getting as much damage to close enemies as possible. And this is one of the best Glyphs you can have here because it has the bonus of buffing up your Thunderstruck node. But that's really it for the video, guys. I'm so happy I was able to get this build out to you guys, and I'm really excited for you guys to test it out. And please come back and give me some feedback on it. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this build, and I was happy I was able to bring you something pretty unique here. I know most people are going to go with Direwolf, as it has been the tried and true build for Diablo 4 up to this point, but now we have a competitor here, and I'm glad we have a human druid we can finally use. I see people asking for human druid all the time on Reddit and different comment sections, so here you go, guys, a human lightning storm build, and man, it packs a punch. I dare say it's just as competitive as any other build out there. But with all that being said, guys, I do plan on streaming a little bit today, but if I do not see you guys, I hope you guys are having a great day or a great night, depending on wherever you're from, and peace out. I will see you in the Stormclaw build guide.